The crystalline walls of the Galactic Academy's combat training facility hummed with anticipation as dozens of alien species gathered to witness what many considered an inevitable spectacle. In the center of the arena, two figures faced each. Other across the polished floor, one towering and imposing, the other seemingly fragile by comparison. Zektar stood nearly 3 meters tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the artificial lights. As the son of Warlord Bractor of the Hegemony's Fourth Fleet, he had been genetically enhanced from birth, his natural Catherian strength amplified to superhuman levels. His forearms ended in razor-sharp claws, and bioluminescent patches along his carapace pulsed with aggressive energy patterns that made several nearby species instinctively step back. Across from him, Sarah Chun appeared almost comically small. At barely 1.7 meters and possessing only 2 arms, the human exchange student looked like a child's toy beside the alien warrior. Her simple training uniform bore no insignia of rank or enhancement, and her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. To the assembled crowd, she seemed woefully unprepared for what was about to unfold. "This is madness," whispered Veltar, a reptilian saurian whose species served as military advisors throughout the galaxy. "That Deathworlder is going to be torn apart." The term Deathworlder had followed Sarah since her arrival at the Academy 6 months ago. Humans came from a planet so hostile that most galactic species couldn't survive there without extensive life support. Earth's gravity was crushing, its atmosphere corrosive, and its wildlife absurdly aggressive. Yet somehow, humans thrived there, which made them objects of both fascination and concern throughout the galaxy. Professor Quindle, an ethereal being from the high-gravity world of Zentaris Prime, raised his translucent hand for silence. Combat Assessment 7-7 Alpha will now commence. Standard Academy rules apply first to achieve submission or unconsciousness wins. Zektar's mandibles clicked in what his species considered laughter. "I will try to leave enough pieces for the medical bay to reassemble, little Deathworlder." Sarah said nothing, simply settling into a stance that looked deceptively relaxed to most observers. Only a few species in the crowd, those who had studied ancient human martial arts or had unfortunate encounters with human military forces, recognized the coil potential in her posture. The signal chimed, and Zektar lunged forward with blinding speed, all 4 arms extending in a coordinated strike pattern that should have overwhelmed any opponent. His enhanced reflexes and natural predatory instincts had never failed him before. The crowd gasped as his claws descended toward the human. Girl. Sarah moved. What happened next would be debated in xenobiology classes for decades. The human didn't retreat or block, she flowed. In a motion so fluid, it seemed almost liquid. She slipped between Zektar's descending arms, stepped inside his guard, and placed her small hands against his thorax. The impact was thunderous. Zektar's 3-meter frame launched backward as if fired from a cannon, his exoskeleton cracking audibly as he struck the far wall of the arena. He slumped to the ground, unconscious before he even realized what had happened. The entire engagement had lasted exactly 1.3 seconds. Absolute silence filled the arena. "Impossible," breathed Veltar, his forked tongue flicking nervously. She barely touched him. Professor Quindle floated down to examine the fallen Catherian, his bioscanners confirming what everyone had witnessed. Zektar is alive but severely concussed. Multiple fractures to his exoskeleton, but nothing life-threatening. He turned his multifaceted eyes toward Sarah, who stood calmly in the center of the arena as if nothing had happened. "Miss Chun, would you care to explain your technique?" Sarah shrugged, a gesture that somehow managed to convey both humility and barely contained power. "Basic physics, Professor. Force equals mass times acceleration. I just redirected his momentum and added some of my own." "Added some of your own?" Quindle's voice carried a note of scientific fascination mixed with horror. "Our sensors indicate you generated approximately 12,000 pounds of force in that strike." A collective shudder ran through the assembled aliens. 12,000 pounds was enough to crush most species instantly. Earth standard. Sarah replied matter-of-factly. "We practice on heavy bags filled with sand. Sometimes rocks if we're feeling ambitious." In the crowd, a Zephyrian philosopher named Esthete Brightwing was rapidly recalculating everything she thought she knew about Deathworlders. "The gravity," she whispered to her companion. "That crushing gravity they evolved under. Every step they take is resistance training. Every movement is performed under conditions that would cripple us." As medical drones carefully extracted the still unconscious Zektar from the arena, whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. The human hadn't used any enhancement technology. No weapons, no armor, just a casual application of physics and a lifetime spent adapting to a world that actively tried to kill its inhabitants every single day. Word of the encounter spread throughout the academy within hours, then across the galactic communication networks within days. The footage became required viewing in military academies across dozens of systems. Diplomatic Corps personnel added new footnotes to their xenological briefings. Human physiology represents extreme environmental adaptation. Recommend caution when engaging in any physical competition. But perhaps the most significant change occurred in the Academy's social dynamics. The whispered epithet Deathworlder, once spoken with a mixture of pity and condescension, took on new meaning. Species that had previously dismissed humans as fragile creatures from an insignificant backwater planet began to reassess their assumptions. Sarah Chen, meanwhile, simply returned to her dormitory to study for her xenobiology exam, unaware that she had just redefined humanity's place in the galactic community with a single, devastating demonstration of what it truly meant to evolve on a world where only the strong survived. The weak don't inherit death worlds. They become part of them.